Sim to the end? How about JERICHO Sims to the end? Because the Lakers could use a cheap, athletic big with motor and defensive potential. In today's video, let's talk about why I think JERICHO Sims could be the most underrated and realistic free agent target big man for the Lakers this offseason, and why you shouldn't view him as just another Jaxson Hayes clone. So like this video, comment down below, subscribe to this channel, and let's take a look through film of some of my favorite qualities about JERICHO Sims. At first glance, you may look at JERICHO Sims' wild sideshow bob hair, his silly, memeable slam dunk contest antics, and the fact that he also went to the University of Texas and think, yeah, this is just another Jaxson Hayes 2.0. But I think there are a couple of key things, for better or for worse, that make him a slightly different prospect to Jaxson Hayes, and one worth more closely considering. First, let's go through JERICHO Sims' general player specs. Sims is 26 years old. He is the former 58th pick of the New York Knicks in the 2021 NBA draft. He is 6'10" with a 7'3" wingspan. Jaxson Hayes, by comparison, is 6'11", 7 feet, with a 7'3" wingspan as well, so Sims is definitely smaller and not a true 7-foot center. But here's where the two players differ. Sims weighs 250 plus pounds to Jaxson Hayes' 220 pounds. In the 2021 NBA Draft Combine, Sims recorded an insane 44.5-inch max vertical, which at the time was the second highest max vert ever recorded in the Combine's history. He also had an equally ridiculous 37-inch standing vert. By comparison, Jaxson Hayes had a 34.5 max vert in 2019 and a 27-inch standing vert. So from all accounts, Sims literally clears Jaxson Hayes from the jump. Though, to be clear, both players are very explosive. And if you just look at the two players' body frames, Sims is built considerably bulkier and heftier than Jaxson Hayes. He's got much broader shoulders and a lower center of gravity with his tree trunk legs, making him a stronger prospect than Hayes. In fact, I've described Sims in the past as being a slight fusion between Jaxson Hayes and Trey Jamison in terms of his combination of athleticism, perimeter mobility, mixed in with some of Jamison's bulk and strength as well. Or in other terms, he also kind of reminds me of a more explosive, less offensively versatile big like Day'Ron Sharpe. Alright, now let's take a look at some of JERICHO Sims' strengths in depth. Now, as you likely already know, JERICHO Sims is a dynamic vertical lob threat in the pick and roll and the dunker spot. He is an explosive aerial force of nature and the perfect release valve for crafty playmakers like Luka Doncic and LeBron James. A walking highlight reel in the pick and roll and open space, JERICHO Sims just rockets off the floor with unreal pop that's a bit reminiscent to other bigs like Dwight Howard when you think about bulkier, undersized centers who can really fly. One thing that I think Sims does functionally better in the pick and roll than Jaxson Hayes is, he sets better screens. He's a lot more patient in his screen setting, and he makes sure he plants his feet and maintains solid ground before rolling. And because he's naturally a more stronger player with a massive frame, he's able to erase defenders out of the play and create space better than Jaxson Hayes can. And then, once Sims rolls, all he has to do is catch the ball and rock it off of those tree trunk legs of his and hammer things down. On top of everything, Sims is a very strong, powerful dunker who loves to go up with force. He's always going up with two hands to make sure that the ball doesn't get stripped loose or blocked. To see someone that big and broad have that much vertical burst off the floor is quite jarring, and when he mixes his 250 pounds of muscle with his 44-plus-inch vert, Sims is like an unstoppable freight train to the rim looking to tear the basket down. Now, another area that JERICHO Sims clears Jaxson Hayes in is his rebounding. Fundamentally, he's able to do a better job of boxing his man out and preventing concessions on the glass due to his bigger frame and more durable base. This past season, JERICHO Sims averaged 4.9 rebounds with the Bucks in just 15 minutes per game. Meanwhile, Jaxson Hayes averaged 4.8 rebounds with the Lakers in 19.5 minutes per game. So Sims already out-rebounded Hayes on the year, playing 4.5 less minutes on the court. Over his career, JERICHO Sims averages 10.5 rebounds per game per 36, and 14.5 rebounds per game per 100 possessions. Compare that to Jaxson Hayes' 8.6 rebounds and 11.5 rebounds in those same respective metrics. And while both have an equally relentless and frenetic motor, because of his broader, stronger frame, SIMS just does an overall better job of boxing guys out, clearing space in the paint, fighting for contested rebounds, and actually winning more of those battles than Jaxson Hayes. And when it comes to rebounding on the offensive end, SIMS in particular has been a very good per-minute offensive rebounder who really mucks things up in the paint, fights for loose balls, and tries his best at all times to muscle his way for extra possessions for his team. In his career, he has averaged 4 offensive rebounds per game per 100 possessions, which is a super stellar number. For reference, in his career, Anthony Davis averages 3.8 offensive rebounds per 100 possessions. And overall, when the ball goes up, SIMS does a great job of tracking the ball and gauging when and how and where it will ricochet off the rim so that he can grab it for himself. Alright folks, we are at the halfway point of this video. If you have liked what you've seen so far, and you like the way that I break down and consolidate the film, then please do me a favor and like, comment, and subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it. With that said, back to more JERICHO SIMS tape. Alright, now let's talk about the most important part of SIMS' game as far as the Lakers are concerned. His defense. And much like Jaxson Hayes, the most intriguing aspect about JERICHO SIMS' defense is his perimeter mobility and switchability. He really knows how to shuffle and chop his feet up out in space, and when he gets switched on to guards, he does a really good job of flipping his hips, sliding with ball handlers all along the court, and shadowing them perfectly all the way to the rim. Because of his perimeter mobility, he can be quite a rabid hound and switchable tracker in space who's very engaged. He's also good at guarding up high in the pick and roll, helping trap ball handlers, and just overall being a very frenetic pest all around the court. He's got good quick twitch instincts and can rotate back to defenders pretty quickly, which makes him not only a good switchable big, but also very good in drop as well. As a rim protector, similar to Jaxson Hayes, SIMS surprisingly is not a great shot blocker statistically, and he has an even worse shot blocking rate than Jaxson Hayes does in his career. A lot of that is likely due to him being an undersized center who you wish had a crazier wingspan, but that's not to say that he can't block shots, because with the motor and insane vertical that SIMS has, if he just has time and space to load up, he can still meet players right at the rim and send shots back demonstrably. Especially as a weak side help defender, SIMS does most of his damage when he can track the ball from a distance, gauge his jump, and then sky in from out of nowhere and swat that shot away. But having said that, blocks per game statistic aside, I do think SIMS has better fundamental positioning and discipline around the basket than Jaxson Hayes. I think he does a better job of making himself big, of walling off drivers and finishers, and using good verticality without reaching in and fouling. Again, it helps that SIMS is a bigger, stronger body that can bother players by muscling them off of their spots. Whereas sometimes it's Jaxson who can get kind of bullied at the rim. And against stronger physical bigs, SIMS can actually fight bulk with bulk and maintain his spot in the paint without being pushed around. If SIMS looks soft, it's really only because he's a shorter, heftier player, not because he lacks the physicality and mass to bang. Pause. And overall, defensively, similar to Jaxson Hayes, SIMS has a really admirable motor that never stops running. And when you combine that with his speed and mobility, he can really cover a lot of space on the court defensively. Whether he comes up high in the pick and roll to trap a ball handler, whether he's playing drop and tagging the roll man, or flying in to help from the weak side, or lunging out to contest a shooter at the three-point line. SIMS has a lot of versatility as a connective defender that can switch out and contain a number of different positions. Lastly, let's just briefly touch upon some of SIMS' weaknesses. As I've already mentioned before, he is an undersized center at 6'10", with an okay wingspan at 7'3", which means taller, equally physical defenders will likely still be able to bother him in the paint. And then defensively, he can be in the right position and have the right timing to beat a player to the spot, but because he's not a 7-foot-plus center, sometimes very talented offensive players will still be able to get their shots up against him. And then when it comes to securing the ball on both ends of the floor, he also kind of has some bad hands and butterfingers, not too unlike Jaxson Hayes. And while I mentioned that I think he's a better screener than Hayes, he does still have a tendency to pick up moving screens and offensive fouls when he's not as patient. And lastly, JERICHO SIMS just has very little offensive skill and versatility apart from catching lobs, getting putbacks, and running the floor. Jaxson Hayes actually has better feel as a 5-out connective player and passer than SIMS at this stage of his career, and I think Jaxson Hayes has a more solid handle as well, because SIMS cannot dribble the ball at all, and you don't really want him making very many decisions with the ball in his hands in general. Alright, there it is, JERICHO SIMS. He was a player that the Lakers were targeting during last year's trade deadline before they ended up landing on Mark Williams. They probably still should have targeted him regardless, but now they get the chance to do so again this summer. Now, I wouldn't give him anything more than the veteran minimum exception or the BAE of around $5 million if the Lakers have that exception available to them, but as you can see, SIMS isn't an exact Jaxson Hayes clone. He's stronger, he's bulkier, he's got more positional discipline on defense, he's a better rebounder, he's got a more controlled motor, but he does still provide that super explosive aerial lob threat dynamic that Luka loves to have. And at the end of the day, I just think he's a better, more aware, and less spastic defender than Jaxson Hayes. But yeah, what do you guys think? Would you welcome JERICHO SIMS as a backup big on the Lakers for the veteran minimum exception or a portion of the taxpayer MLE? Let me know in the comments below, like this video, and please hit subscribe. This has been Jonathan Hernandez of the Lakers Legacy Podcast, and I will catch you guys next time. Peace.